This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Pursue Fitness, and I'm glad we're joined by John Rawling. John, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
So obviously it's good to hear. We're up here today, I should say, in Leeds. Josh Warrington announcing his third world title defence against Sofiane-Takoucht. Just talk to him about that fight and your thoughts on Josh's decision to face Sofiane.
Well, he would obviously have rather have had one of the big unification fights. I'm told that Valdez is moving up to super feather, and so consequently Oscar Valdez, the WBO champion, didn't want the fight. Leo Santa Cruz was offered it, and also they were made aware that he would have been prepared to go to America, Josh, to fight Leo Santa Cruz, the WBC champion. They basically dead battered that. Gary Russell Jr. hardly seems to fight nowadays, so he wasn't in the equation. So at the moment, the unification fights weren't out there. This fellow Takoucht is rated number 4 by the IBF. He was the highest available challenger within the IBF, and Josh is the IBF champion, as you know. So he's going for the man on paper who's the best possible option out there. He's undefeated in his last 8 fights. He's been a featherweight since he turned pro some 13 years ago. You only need to look at him to see that he's a guy who lives the life, and he's coming into it on the back of a winning streak, and he has rightly said, if I win this, it's a dream come true.
Josh hasn't made it a secret of his desire to become a unified world champion. With that being said, do you think that there's going to be a risk that maybe he won't be able to motivate himself this time round? He's mentioned that when he fought Kid Galahad, he didn't have that same motivation because he wanted another unification fight for that bout. Instead, he had to defend against his mandatory. Do you think there could be that risk that he just can't motivate himself enough against Sofiane, which makes it an even more dangerous fight?
Well, it's a possibility. I mean, his dad says that's not the case. Sean, who trains him, says that he's in terrific shape and he's ready to go now. So he's saying that's not the case. But he certainly, I think he fights better when there's the fear factor within him. And I'm not convinced that that's going to be there on this occasion. But there is certainly a big motivation that he delivers an eye-catching performance for the fans after what was really, I think to most people who watched it, a pretty unsatisfactory contest last time out. It's very difficult for any fighter to go in there and perform against somebody who's basically adopting fairly negative tactics. There were those ringside who thought that King Galahad had won the fight, but I having watched it back, I don't believe that. And Josh, I think, wants to go out there and produce something eye-catching for the Leeds fans.
You've just mentioned that Kid Galahad fight. You've had time to reflect on it. What did you make of the whole fight itself, and how did you score it in the end?
Well, I scored it to Josh. I think he won by 2 or 3 points. I think if you're going to win the title, you have to do more than Barry did. Just a single punch and to spoil is not going to be enough. He's clearly a talented fighter, and they came in with a game plan. But I don't think that game plan was enough on that occasion to win the fight. I was over in America, so I'm only able to watch it on the basis of replays that I've seen since. But I thought Josh won it, and I thought he won it not by a huge margin, but I think he won it fairly clearly. And Barry, I think he produced a good performance within the game plan that they came up with, but I don't think it was enough.
That style that Kid Galahad showed tried to be slippery and awkward at times. Yep, he did hold, and he may have been negative. If he was another leading name in the division, do you think he might have made himself a bit more of a difficult sell to those other leading names?
What, Josh or
Kid Galahad?
Oh, certainly, absolutely. He's going to be. Mickey Duff had a phrase for it. It was the chairman of the Who Needs Him Society, and I think that he's kind of become a little bit of a member of that society on the back of that performance. I don't think too many of the champions are going to be out there looking for him, and it's going to be again, I think, a situation where Barry's going to have to box his way through to a mandatory position to get another world title fight.
And then back to Josh, with regards to the fact that none of the world champions wanted to unify this time round, what type of situation could Josh find himself in with regards to, could it be an ongoing process where he can't get this unification bout that he's desperately craving?
Well, we certainly hope that's not the case. Money talks as ever, and it needs fighters to actually fancy getting in there against Josh Warrington. You know, the WBO title is going to be declared vacant, I think, with Oscar Valdez moving up.
Well, as far as I'm aware, it has been now. And Shakur Stevenson
yeah.
versus Gonzales has been named to fight for vacancy.
Well, Shakur Stevenson is a mouth, and he believes, you know, he's a braggart, he's a talent. You only need to watch him to know that he can fight, and he's going to fancy this one. And you heard me mention his name to Josh in today's press conference, and Josh, I think, certainly would relish the opportunity to go in against him, not least because I think a lot of people would say Stevenson maybe has got the sort of style that's going to give Josh trouble.
Who would be a more difficult fight, Shakur Stevenson or Oscar Valdez?
I think Oscar Valdez would have been a toe-to-toe sort of battle, which would have been right in Josh's court, and plus he's got more miles under the clock. Shakur Stevenson is younger, fresher, and a little bit more slippery. I think he's a more difficult and dangerous fighter for Josh at this stage than Oscar Valdez would have been. But that's just an opinion. That's just the way I see it.
Sticking with that division, unfortunately, Carl Frampton suffered a shock injury during preparations for the Emmanuel Dominguez fight, which was supposed to take place on Saturday night. What were your thoughts when you heard about it, an ornament falling on his hand when he was just sitting there having a coffee by a table?
Well, if I was the manager of the hotel, I think I'd be a little bit nervous about possible legal action coming in his direction. But, you know, I mean, you've got to feel for Carl. He's put, 8-9 weeks into his preparation camp for this. It's probably cost him 20 or 30,000 quid to get ready for a fight which will never happen, and it's not the first time that it's happened to him, remember. I mean, it's savage bad luck, and he in an ideal world he needed this fight, and he wanted to fight Dominguez to show that he was still live, that he was still there, that he was still ready. Now he's going to be talking about going straight into a world title fight, and where that's going to be, well, time will tell. But at this stage, you've got to feel sorry for Carl Frampton.
Where does Carl go from here? You just mentioned he has that desire to fight for a world title, but where does his career go on the back of this injury and when he returns?
Well, he's still a name, isn't he? He's still somebody who's talked about. He's still a big name. You know, he's a bigger name than Josh over in the United States. And the trilogy against Santa Cruz, I think, is very much one which he would like and which would sell over in the States. So that's somewhere I'm sure that he's going to be looking for. If you asked Carl, I think he would relish that. You know, no fighter wants to go through saying, yeah, I beat him, then I lost to him. He wants the decider.
And just to move away from the featherweight division, on Monday we was at a press conference with Daniel Dubois' announcement of his next fight against Ebenezer Tete. Just talk to me about that one.
Well, Daniel Dubois looked sensational, didn't he? He turned up looking like a film star in that three-piece suit. I mean, he walked in looking like the world heavyweight champion. But I detect a real growing maturity and confidence about Daniel. I think that win against Nathan Gorman was very good. And nobody produces a complete performance, so there's positives and negatives to take away from it. But I think the thing which pleased Martin Bowers, his trainer, so much, and indeed Daniel himself, was that his boxing was what carried him to that victory. You know, coming in behind the jab and working his way on the basics. I think he proved to a lot of people that he's more than just a banger. He proved that he can box a bit as well, and the future looks great for Daniel.
Ebenezer Tete may not be someone who's known across the boxing world. No. On the back of Daniel's fight with Nathan Gorman, which was billed as a 50-50 and was a terrific performance from Daniel, is there that pressure now that he's going to be expected to go in with other names similar to Nathan who are well known across the division, or at least in Britain?
Well, I mean, Tete's got 16 knockout wins and 19 victories. He's undefeated to date, and he's got a record similar to that of Richard Lartey, who came across and showed great fighting spirit when he got in there against Daniel. Yeah, the pressure's on him to look good, but it goes with the territory. And don't forget, he's only 21. I mean, he's still got the L plates on to a degree, but he's got to go down as the hottest young prospect in the world right now. I was looking at the IBO rankings this morning, and I see that he's now up to number 12 in those independent rankings, and he's upwardly mobile, no question about it.
And finally, just wanted to get your thoughts. Tyson Fury's next opponent, there's a lot of reports it's going to be Otto Wallin. What are your thoughts if that one was to be the case?
Well, if that's the case, then it's an undefeated fighter and another opportunity for Tyson to market himself over in America, in Las Vegas, and try and build his fan base once again, because all probability is that next year the fight against Deontay Wilder will happen if Wilder can account for Luis Ortiz. And remember, Ortiz gave him plenty to worry about last time out. But provided Deontay comes through that and Tyson comes through against Otto Wallin, if that indeed is confirmed as the fight, then it's all systems go for the Wilder rematch, and I can't wait.
Well, John Rawling, as always, I appreciate your time. So thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.